Hold on. Before you scroll past this video, ask yourself one question. What if I told you that your salary right now might be the only thing standing between you and a completely new life in Australia? What if the number on your paycheck is literally the gatekeeper to one of the most incredible opportunities of your lifetime? Because here's the reality that just dropped. 468,000 people successfully moved to Australia recently, but there's a catch that's about to change everything for anyone considering this journey. That magic number? $73,150. And if you're not earning that, you need to hear what I'm about to tell you right now. Welcome to Aussie Global Affairs, the channel where we don't sugarcoat the truth about Australian migration. I'm here to give you the real story, the facts that matter, and the insider knowledge that could make or break your Australian dream. Today, we're tackling the question that thousands of you have been asking. Can you still move to Australia in 2025? And what does this new income threshold actually mean for your chances? Let's get one thing crystal clear from the start. Australia hasn't closed its doors. Far from it. The fact that 468,000 people successfully made the move proves that pathways still exist, opportunities are real, and the Australian dream is alive and well. But here's what's changed, and why you need to pay attention to every word I'm about to say. The game has new rules, and understanding these rules is the difference between success and watching your application get rejected. This $73,150 income requirement isn't just a random number pulled out of thin air. It represents a fundamental shift in how Australia is approaching skilled migration. The government is essentially saying, we want migrants, but we want migrants who are already established in their careers, who bring proven earning capacity, and who can hit the ground running economically. This is about ensuring that people coming to Australia aren't just filling jobs, but filling high-value positions that contribute substantially to the economy. Now, before panic sets in, let me break down exactly what this means for different types of applicants, because not everyone is affected equally, and there might be pathways available to you that bypass this requirement entirely. For skilled worker visa applicants, particularly those applying for the temporary skill shortage visa or employer-sponsored pathways, this income threshold is becoming a critical benchmark. Employers who want to sponsor international workers need to demonstrate that they're paying market-rate salaries, and this $73,150 figure serves as a baseline for many occupations. The logic is straightforward. If a job is genuinely skilled and in demand, it should command a salary that reflects that value. But here's where it gets interesting. Not every occupation requires exactly $73,150. Different jobs have different market salary levels, and the requirement varies accordingly. A software engineer in Sydney might need to demonstrate earning capacity well above this threshold, while a registered nurse in regional Queensland might qualify with slightly different requirements. The key is understanding where your specific occupation sits within the salary spectrum and what evidence you need to provide. For those of you currently earning below this threshold in your home countries, I know what you're thinking. Does this mean my Australian dream is over? Absolutely not. Here's why. This requirement primarily applies to employer-sponsored visas and certain skilled migration streams. There are still pathways that don't directly tie to this specific income figure. State nomination programs, for instance, operate with different criteria. States and territories across Australia are desperate for workers in specific occupations, and they have the power to nominate candidates for skilled migration visas, even if those candidates don't hit the federal income threshold. If you're willing to commit to living and working in regional areas or in states with critical shortages in your field, you might find doors opening that would otherwise be closed. Graduate visas for international students who've completed Australian qualifications don't require you to demonstrate prior income at this level. This is one reason why the student pathway remains so attractive. You study in Australia, gain local qualifications, potentially get Australian work experience, and then transition to skilled migration without needing to prove you were already earning $73,150 before you arrived. Family reunion visas operate on entirely different principles. If you're being sponsored by an Australian citizen or permanent resident spouse, partner, parent, or child, income requirements work differently. There are financial capacity requirements to ensure the sponsor can support the applicant, but these aren't the same as requiring the migrant themselves to have previously earned $73,150. Business and investor visas have their own financial thresholds that are substantially higher than $73,150, so if you're in this category, you're playing in a completely different financial league anyway. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Why did Australia implement this income threshold? Understanding the reasoning helps you navigate the system more strategically. First, it's about ensuring wage parity and preventing exploitation. There's been concern that some employers were using temporary skilled migration programs to bring in cheaper labor rather than genuinely addressing skills shortages. By setting a clear income floor, the government aims to ensure that foreign workers are paid fairly and that the visa system isn't being used to undercut Australian workers' wages. Second, it's about fiscal contribution. Higher-earning migrants pay more in taxes, require fewer government services, and contribute more substantially to economic growth. From a purely economic perspective, the government wants to maximize the fiscal benefit of migration. Third, it's a quality control mechanism. Earning capacity often correlates with skill level, experience, and qualifications. By requiring evidence of higher incomes, the system naturally filters for more experienced, established professionals rather than entry-level workers. Fourth, it addresses public perception. Migration policy doesn't exist in a political vacuum. There are ongoing debates about the economic impacts of migration, and demonstrating that incoming workers are high-skilled and high-earning helps maintain public support for continued migration programs. Now let's get tactical. If you're serious about moving to Australia in 2025 and this income requirement is relevant to your pathway, what do you actually need to do? First, document your current income meticulously. Gather pay slips, tax returns, employment contracts, and any other evidence that demonstrates your earning capacity. If you're self-employed or work in a less formal economy, you'll need to be creative about documenting your income through business records, client contracts, bank statements, and potentially statutory declarations. Second, consider whether your current salary in your home country translates appropriately to Australian dollar terms. Exchange rates matter. If you're earning the equivalent of $73,150 Australian dollars in your local currency, make sure you can clearly demonstrate this through proper documentation and currency conversion evidence. Third, understand that not all income counts equally. The requirement typically refers to base salary, not total compensation including bonuses, benefits, or other variable elements. Make sure you're calculating your income the same way the Department of Home Affairs will evaluate it. Fourth, if you're currently below the threshold, strategize about how to increase your income before applying. This might mean seeking a promotion, changing employers, taking on additional responsibilities, or even switching to a higher-paying occupation within your field. Every dollar you can add to your income now potentially strengthens your application later. Fifth, explore whether your occupation has specific salary requirements that differ from the general threshold. The Department of Home Affairs publishes market salary rates for different occupations, and these can vary significantly from the baseline figure we're discussing. Let's address something crucial. The 468,000 people who successfully moved to Australia didn't all earn $73,150 or more. This figure includes students, family reunion cases, humanitarian entrants, working holiday makers, and various other categories where this income requirement doesn't apply. The point is that multiple pathways exist, and understanding which pathway suits your circumstances is essential. For young professionals early in their careers, the student pathway might be the most viable route. Invest in Australian education, gain local qualifications and work experience, then transition to skilled migration from within Australia. Yes, it requires upfront investment in education costs, but it bypasses the immediate income requirement and gives you time to build your earning capacity within the Australian system. For experienced professionals in demanded occupations, employer sponsorship might be the most direct route, but you'll need to ensure your income meets the threshold and that you can find an Australian employer willing to sponsor you. This often requires demonstrating not just qualifications and experience, but also that you bring specialized skills that genuinely can't be found in the local labor market. For people with close family ties to Australia, family reunion visas offer pathways that operate independently of your personal income, though the sponsor's financial capacity becomes relevant instead. For entrepreneurs and investors, the conversation shifts entirely to net worth, business success, and investment capacity rather than salary income. Here's something that doesn't get discussed enough. Timing matters enormously. Migration policies evolve, thresholds adjust, occupation lists change, and what's possible today might not be possible next year. The $73,150 figure itself isn't static. It gets reviewed and adjusted periodically to reflect wage growth and economic conditions. If you're on the borderline now, you might find yourself comfortably above the threshold in 12 months, or you might find the threshold has increased and you're still below it. The successful migrants, those 468,000 people who made it happen, share certain characteristics beyond just meeting income requirements. They were strategic, they planned carefully, they understood which pathway matched their circumstances, they gathered impeccable documentation, they engaged professional help when needed, and they persisted through the inevitable bureaucratic challenges that migration processes involve. One of the biggest mistakes potential migrants make is assuming there's a one-size-fits-all approach. There isn't. Your age, occupation, qualifications, work experience, English language ability, financial resources, family connections, and willingness to live in different parts of Australia all factor into which pathway gives you the best chance of success. Another common mistake is waiting for the perfect moment or perfect circumstances. Here's the truth. There's rarely a perfect moment. Life always has complications. Maybe your income isn't quite where you want it. Maybe your English test score needs improvement. Maybe you haven't finished getting your qualifications assessed. But successful migrants start the process even when circumstances aren't perfect, working on improving weak areas while progressing with elements they can control. The income threshold, while significant, is just one piece of a complex puzzle. It's not an insurmountable barrier. It's a requirement to plan around, strategize about, and potentially work toward meeting if you don't currently hit the mark. So here's the bottom line. Yes, you can absolutely still move to Australia in 2025. The $73,150 income requirement affects certain pathways but not others, and even for pathways where it applies, there are strategies for meeting the requirement or finding alternative routes. The real question isn't whether it's possible. The 468,000 successful migrants prove it is. The question is whether you're willing to do what it takes to make it happen. Are you ready to stop wondering and start planning? Are you prepared to honestly assess where you stand, identify which pathway matches your circumstances, and take concrete steps toward your Australian goal? Because that's what separates people who dream about Australia from people who actually live there. Here at Aussie Global Affairs, we're committed to giving you the unfiltered truth about Australian migration. No false promises, no misleading information, just clear, accurate, actionable guidance that helps you make informed decisions about your future. If this video helped clarify where you stand and what your options are, show your support by hitting that like button right now. Subscribe to Aussie Global Affairs and turn on notifications because migration policy changes constantly, and staying informed is essential to success. Share this video with anyone in your network who's considering Australian migration. They need to understand these requirements just as much as you do. Your Australian future is within reach, but it requires knowledge, strategy, and action. We'll be here every step of the way, bringing you the latest updates, breaking down the policies, and helping you navigate the path forward. This is Aussie Global Affairs, and we'll see you in the next video. Now go make that Australian dream happen.